Thank you. If you guys want to get real this morning, let me tell you, I didn't know it was going to rain. Did you guys know it was going to rain? And out of all days to curl your hair, you know how I feel? Like being a mom and you curl your hair and then you walk out and it rains. Anyway, I also fell down in my dress talking to my son, and then I got caught in the dress and I couldn't get up, and it was this whole thing, and it was here at church. Anyway, we're here, and we get to talk this morning about inspiring young readers. And we're not talking about inspiring just any young readers, it's about inspiring our young readers. And just finding joy in that whole process and what that looks like for us. And so my goal for today is that regardless of where you're at with reading, whatever your personal relationship is with books, that we can still come away today feeling enlightened or just refreshed or even encouraged just to take this new, different opportunity to invest in our kids and connect with them. So, a little background. I grew up way out in the country in Visalia, if anybody knows where that is. It's farmland. Yes, thank you. Shout out. And we had a tiny house, a big backyard, and we were surrounded by orange groves. And my favorite pastime as a kid was to read a book and then go outside and reenact that said book. And we had lots of cats and lots of dogs, so the potential for a full cast of characters was always there, which was great. And that was just something I loved to do. I loved books. I loved reading. From an early age, I was just so passionate about storytelling. And those of you that have known me for more than 2 minutes know that I have a terrible memory. Not only am I clumsy when I'm wearing a dress, but I also have a terrible memory. So I asked my mom, what did you and my dad do with me and my brother? I have an older brother. When we were little, that kind of helped us just be inspired readers. And she said it wasn't anything extreme. They would take turns every night just reading to us, alternating who would read to who. And then also books kind of went where we went. So when we were in the car, that's what we had were books. When we went to a restaurant, when we went to McDonald's, we had books, right? When we weren't playing on the play place, we had a book. And so books were just kind of incorporated into our lives. And then she reminded me, because this I actually remembered when she told me, was that at one point my dad stopped reading to us. And it wasn't because he was taking a hiatus, and it wasn't because he was on strike, but he actually started telling us stories instead. He'd make up stories, and that was such an exciting point of our day for us. We loved when Dad got to come in and we got to tell a story with him. He would start, we could interject, we could take the story where we wanted it to go, we could change the plot, and it was just, that is the moment that I can look back and recognize that that little investment that my dad took to connect with us and to connect with me really hooked me and really ignited that passion for reading and that passion for storytelling. So much so that my dream was to always become a writer, and I wanted to be a famous one, ladies. No books yet. Anyway, I had an opportunity to go to Alaska and go to grad school there and get a master's degree in creative writing, but God had completely different plans, and instead he sent me and my husband way down south to sunny South Orange County, and we started having babies instead. And all of us know that once we start having babies, our life becomes so full, right? Even after the first, your life has so many changes, and it changes drastically kind of overnight. And with those changes, you have this new little life that has very real needs that you get to now put, not just your husband, but now you have this other little person that you get to serve and put before yourself. So with all that, needless to say, reading was no longer a priority for me, or it was just something that didn't fall on the top 20 things for me to get done in a day. And it became something that I did during nap time or at bedtime. If I had a free 10 minutes and I really wanted to read something, and if I wasn't just wanting to go to sleep, I would read. But it wasn't until, full disclosure, you're going to find out that I am not very good in the early education department. My son was 2. He's 3 now, Emmy's 1 now. But so when he was 2, I recognized there was this huge discrepancy between the way that I viewed reading and just how passionate I was toward books and that relationship I had with it, regardless if I was doing it as often as I wanted to, I still had that same passion, but it was so lacking in my son. He was just not interested. Granted, he's all boy. He's a very strong-willed child. If anybody was here this last session, we went over the strong-willed child, and he is the poster boy for that. He would much rather be dressing up as a Hulk and smashing things, or he'd rather be jumping off the couch, or he'd take the book and throw it instead. But to actually go into a room and to find him sitting there with the book open, engaged and excited and joyful about that was just something that wasn't happening. So that's when I really had to kind of figure out, okay, and that's the direction that we're going this morning, and it's probably more of a refresher for most of us, is that why do we even read to our kids? Why is it important? Why is reading such an important skill for them to know? And then also, what are some practical ways to do that? What are some very simple how-tos that we can take home that I can start applying to my kid for trial and error to see what's going to work? And then lastly, we're going to touch on today just the incredible opportunity that we have through reading to really invest in our kids. And this is something I'd never quite grasped the notion of. Okay, so let's get started. Longest intro ever. Here we go. I have an outline for you guys. If you're outline people, I am definitely an outline person. It just keeps me on track. I need that to stay organized. So on your outline, we are going to have the first point is that we just need to learn the importance of reading, right? Or relearn the importance of reading or be refreshed. And there's so many key benefits, you guys. I mean, the Google is a great resource that you can just see hundreds of benefits of reading, and I just narrowed it down to 6 that we're just going to kind of cover briefly and go over just that I thought was helpful for me to kind of be refreshed on, and I'm sure will be helpful for you too. So the first one that we're going to talk about is just basic cognitive skills and language development. So cognitive skills, right, that's the ability to think and understand. And then that language development is to just decipher the language behind it. And we gain knowledge with these cognitive skills. So that's why it's such an important thing to teach our kids. And something interesting that I read that I never thought about was just reading a book to your child. You're bringing somebody else's voice into your home. And 90% of the time, the language that your children are hearing, the vocabulary, the grammatical uses that you are using in your home is 90% of the time what they're hearing. Right? But when you're reading a book, you're inviting this new voice, new grammatical styles, new vocabulary, new words. That's only going to build that language for them. And then the next one will be listening skills, which those of us with toddlers, how many times have we asked our toddler, are you listening to me? Right? But listening is so much more than just hearing. It's understanding what's being said and then being able to relate to that in some way. And these are great pre-reading skills that's going to enable our child to understand the story, recall it, discuss it, retell it, reenact it with your animals. And it helps with just learning also the sequencing of stories. And this is great pre-learning, pre-reading skills that we can build these foundations, these blocks that are eventually going to help them be more successful readers when they actually start reading on their own. The next one we're going to go over is bonding, and that's just the child-parent relationship. And this one we're really going to dive into deeper on the third point once we get there. But this is so important, you guys. Our lives are so full, and just having that time to kind of slow down, granted, even if it's 10 minutes, just being able to sit and connect with our kids and really be purposeful in that time is so important for your relationship with them, so important for their development. It's a great opportunity to pour into them. Okay, the next one is going to be attention span and self-control, which again, with toddlers, we have those strong-willed children, not just child, because we breed them, apparently. My 1-year-old is now proving to be strong-willed as well. So this is huge, right? This is something that we really have to pour in and invest in our kids because of just the way they're predisposed to be strong-willed. This self-control is what we really need to pour into them with. And so a way that we can do that is through consistency. So same with reading, right? Same with any habit. If you're trying to build a new habit or if you're trying to break a habit, it's all about consistency. Same with our kids and reading. For my son that I didn't think could sit for more than 0.5 seconds, by being consistent, he's capable of doing a lot more than I thought he could. So the next one is we are going to encourage and promote creativity. This is a huge key benefit that we are going to see in our children when we invest in them this way. And this is something that I loved, right? Books open up these new worlds to kids. This is the part that really hooked me personally, was just that imagination, just that pretending. And this also is a great way to teach empathy to our kids, to use reading as that vehicle to show life through somebody else's eyes, this character that's struggling in some sort of area. It just teaches all around empathy. And there's so many great, awesome opportunities for the next point with life lessons and teachable moments. Books are chock full of these if we have our eyes open and we're looking for it, right? Healthline has a quote that I want to read to you guys. It says, "Books provide an opportunity to talk about real-world situations in age-appropriate ways." And I love this because there's so many topics that even I don't know how to particularly start this conversation with my child. And there's so many targeted books out there. I remember with Finn, we got him a book on potty training, and it was on a level to where he could start to also understand the concept, and then we can also communicate about it outside of the book. Or there's ones about a new brother or a sister that was helpful for us when we were introducing a new child into the mix. There's even the harder subjects like death and sickness, and all these books are, again, targeted at their level to help them understand, and again, that increases that cognitive skills that we're trying to develop in them. Okay. So these points are all the backbone of why we read to our children. So let's move on to point number 2. And we got to get engaged in the reading, ladies. We got to get in there. Push these puffy sleeves up and get in there. And finding practical ways to do this with my kids, every kid is unique, right? And so it's going to be a trial and error process. So it's also going to require a lot of patience and grace and just long suffering on trying to find what works best with your kid. Consistency, of course, right? But then also finding which techniques, which tips that they respond the best to. So I've compiled a list of to-dos, and hopefully they help or inspire you guys in different ways that you can take home and start applying today with your kids. And you guys are probably going to think these are very simple. And why is Courtney up here today? But the first one is to just model a love for reading, right? Very simple, is that we can be the model. We've all heard the phrase that more is caught than taught. And this was something that my son wasn't seeing. I love books, but my son wasn't seeing me reading. I wasn't there telling him to read. I wasn't there promoting reading in our home. I wasn't excited about the reading. And that was a big misunderstanding or big opportunity that I missed because I just wasn't taking that time to show him and taking the 5 minutes of my day just to sit there and read and be engaged and excited for him to see that that's something that we just do. Another one, again, is to just read to them, right? And this was something that reading for us and why it wasn't successful necessarily in our household was because there wasn't that consistency. And reading was something that we just did if I didn't know what to do next. And that was like if we had a free 5 minutes, let's just grab a book and we'll just do this real fast. But again, my son just wasn't interested. So even with a toddler who struggles to sit or a baby that you think is too small, we can't underestimate their abilities, right? I know my 1-year-old, she has been around now because I kind of understand a little bit more of what I should be doing or could be doing with my kids with reading. She now is capable to sit there and kind of flip the pages, right? She's not reading, but she can kind of point and make like little sounds and stuff. But that's an appropriate expectation for a 1-year-old. She's at least, opening the book. She knows that you open a book, right? And I feel like that is huge for a 1-year-old to just know that that's what you do with a book. You open the book and you turn the pages. And so now with my 3-year-old son, I can have this expectation on him that he can read a book. He can sit. He can be engaged. It is possible for him to do that. Another way that we can do this is just run with their interests, right? My son is so into whales, you guys, whales and weather. Especially with that big thunderstorm we just had, that was just like, explosion, let's read more books about weather. And if that's something they're interested, go with it, right? I'm a big fan of Amazon, and I know it gets a little expensive, but you can buy used books on Amazon. But we can just get all the whale books, and then that's something that he's actually excited about and something that he's willing and wanting to sit down and read. Even if all the books are slightly different, slightly the same, it's okay. Run with their interests. And I know I fall prey to the fact that I'm not that interested in whales. I think they're cool, but I just don't want to sit and read. Some of us fall into that. That's an easy trap to fall into. Well, I don't want to really read about whales, so let's read something else. But I think that's also a missed opportunity to be able to say, hey, you're excited about this. I'm going to be excited about it with you, and we can do this together. Another way is to just let them move around, right? Especially if it's preschool age. They're not quite equipped to sit there. I had this expectation of my son where he would sit, hands folded, engaged in my reading and my storytelling. And he just wasn't capable of doing that at 2. And so with that, I think, again, we need to adjust our expectations and have realistic ones set. We can build up that self-control in them. But again, that's going to take consistency. But with that consistency requires that patience, that grace, like we were talking about. Okay, and then lastly, we are going to get involved in the reading. So if you have ever wanted to be an actress, now is your chance, ladies. You have the best audience in the world, right? I could have the silliest voice that I would not want anybody else to hear, but when my 3-year-old son hears me acting this silly voice in a character in a book, he thinks it's the funniest thing in the world, right? And just those little things, by being expressive, being engaged in the reading, be exciting, make that story come to life, they're going to be more excited and they're going to be more engaged in it. Another way is just to simply schedule time for it. I know, again, life is full, life is busy. We have a lot of commitments, a lot of things going on. And if you are somebody like me that will not be able to put it off and then commit to actually doing it when there's time for it, I have to schedule it. And so for us, what we found what works best for our family is that Emmy wakes up before everybody else in the morning. So that's her and my time to kind of sit, look at books, play with them, her and I to kind of connect before anybody else wakes up. And then Finn and I have a designated time when it's Emmy's first nap in the morning. So that's when he knows that we sit down, we're going to read some books, we're going to do a little schoolwork, then we get to play, and he and I just get to have time together. And again, everybody's family is different, so it's finding that balance and finding what works best for your family. A great thing that you can do, a great resource that we know of is the library. Again, I said Amazon. We have Compass Books just right here on campus that has great books. And I think they mentioned here last week, I don't know if they said it to you guys, but they did on Thursday, that it's like a little Hobby Lobby. So watch out for that as well. I know that's hard for me to go in there. Another one, Pinterest is great for this. Have you guys heard of reading nooks? Do any of you guys have reading nooks? I would love a reading nook. Our space right now is super small. We're in the process of moving, so I'm already thinking of little areas in the new place where we can have a reading nook. But a reading nook is just essentially a corner in a room. You throw a bunch of pillows. It's just designated for reading. So you have baskets there. You fill it with books. You can have wall shelves. You can go really Pinterest crazy, have all the little tchotchkes and decorations and the little pom-pom balls and stuff, which is great. And I just think that for my son, I know my little 3-year-old boy would be really excited to have his own little space for reading. So that's another way to get them interested or excited about it, that they just have this private little area that's just for reading, just for their whale books. Another one is just to let them pick the book, right? Same thing with running with their interests. Just let them pick the book. And it's okay if it's the same one over and over and over again, right? I'm pretty sure we have Goodnight Moon and The Little Blue Truck memorized. But that's okay, right? If it's something that he enjoys and something that he's interested in, then again, keep him interested in reading by reading the same book. And it's okay also to say, hey, let's pick a different one, or we'll read this one and let's pick a new one. Or then we'll read this one tomorrow night, let's read a new one tonight. That's okay too. But don't be afraid to let them pick the same book over and over again, or just pick the book in general. Another one is role play outside of story time. I'm really pushing this on you guys to get your animals involved. Or stuffed animals. We use stuffed animals sometimes at home. You can use puppets. Just being able to make that story come to life and more than just a page that they're looking at is really going to help them be excited about reading. And lastly, let them ask questions. I know for me, somebody that, again, is so passionate about reading, it's like you get a book, you start reading, you're flipping through, you're getting there, you finish the book, and then you can talk to me, right? But when you have a little 3-year-old, they're gonna ask questions, especially my son gets distracted by the pictures on the page, right? And that's okay. If he's gonna ask, we have this book that is a really great book that teaches like values and morals and just character. And it's filled with ladybugs. There's like random hidden ladybugs throughout the book. And he gets so excited about these ladybugs. But instead of dismissing him, instead of saying like, we are reading this book, we will talk about the ladybug later. We're not looking at ladybugs right now. I'm teaching you about being honest and trustworthy. Right? It's okay to take that time to engage in them. Make it an interactive experience. Say, well, what do you think this ladybug thinks about this character, or what the book's talking about? What do you think that ladybug's doing? You know, there's so many ways to just start a conversation with them and then keep the story going. Okay, so that we've covered the why, and then that was just some of the hows. So we're going to go over point number 3, which is just start investing in a reading relationship. We have this incredible opportunity, you guys, to invest in our kids. And I don't know about you, I have had so many of these instances where you're out walking your child or your children, and a random stranger comes up to you, and they say, oh, they're so cute. I remember when mine were that young. They're all grown now, and they have kids of their own. And then what's the next thing that they usually say? Do you guys know? Anybody? Well, cherish every minute? Yes, exactly. It goes by so fast, right? It goes by so fast. I can't even look at, he's 3, and I can't even look at his baby pictures without like getting really, granted I'm pregnant, but I get so caught up and teary-eyed just that even these 3 years have passed by so fast, and how there has been lost time in there. Because I wasn't purposeful and because I wasn't investing in his little life as I should have been. And so through reading, we have this great opportunity to just slow down and be with our kids. We have a firefighter household. So needless to say, Daddy's gone a lot more often than he's home. So most of the time I'm outnumbered. And that's hard, right? I'm pulled between almost 3 different ways, soon to be. And nobody is quite getting that time that they probably desire, right? So when we invest in a reading relationship, we can just give them undivided attention, right? And this is by just blocking out those small moments of our day, like we've tried to be purposeful in our home. In the morning is Emmy, and then at nap time it's Finn. But that's just time with you, your kid, and the journey that you're on through that book and the conversations that are going to come from that. Another one is that we can just learn more about your child. I know Finn, in his little 3-year-old mind, he has so many questions. He has so many things that he doesn't understand, so many things he wants to understand, so many things that he doesn't know that he needs to understand. And I have this awesome opportunity to just sit down and find out where he's at, right? And we can use books to do that by us actually asking questions, right? We can allow them to ask questions, but then we can engage and ask them questions as well. We can ask them, what did you like about that story? What do you think about that main character? Do you think they made a good decision? Do you think they made a bad decision? What would you do if you were in that situation? And with that, reading can be helpful to just develop value systems and the importance of becoming a discriminating reader. There are so many opportunities for conversation about the book, characters, what you read, along with those teachable moments. Again, what should he have done? What would you do? We can point out these positive character traits like trustworthy, responsible, patient, kind, forgiving, and we can question the negative with these teachable moments. It helps our kids not only become discriminating readers, but able to have good judgment even outside of a book. And I can't tell you guys how many times we've read a book about sharing where a character is not sharing in the book. We close the book, we go outside, we do life, and then we have a very real situation of somebody not sharing. And it's a great way, again, to connect the real life to the book and have that teachable moment to where we can say, hey, bud, we just read that book about that boy not sharing, and you just weren't sharing. How do you think, remember how that boy felt in the book? How do you think this child felt when you weren't sharing with him? And again, it's just another way to reinforce those values that we want to build up and instill in them. We have a call, ladies, that we're a mom, right? And what a gift that we have been gifted the children that we have specifically for us. And we have been called to encourage them, to build them up, to equip them, to train them, to teach them in the way that they should go so that they don't depart from it, right? And we have so many of these opportunities. And reading can be just one of those necessary skills that we can use as another little opportunity to just invest in them further. And it can be such a powerful tool. Whoa, sorry. Anyway, we've been gifted this incredible ability to love and to run on zero sleep. And yet, I just want to challenge us today to really look at our children and recognize it's not going to last forever, right? They are going to be little people, then bigger people, and then they will be out of our house. I tell my husband, Finn's going to stay with us forever. He says 18's the cutoff. So eventually they're going to be out, right? So it is a short time that we have to invest and to pour into them and love them. And hopefully you guys can take some of these tips and tricks and how-tos and just go home with that, and that you can feel encouraged today to go and just invest in your kids. Thank you guys so much for being here and for taking notes, being such good note takers. Have a great discussion.